Clear prop.
Well, so it's been a while since I put out a video. As I said in the last one, I was going to take a break, and that's exactly what I did. And since then, I've completed the 40 hours of flying on the aircraft, the first 40 hours. And for those who've been following along closely, you'll know that I've moved the aircraft now up to my property here up at Holly Mountain in Arkansas. And actually housing the hangar, the aircraft in a neighbor's hangar right now, just because it's a bit difficult getting it into my hangar because the driveways aren't paved yet. And so I've been doing some different little fixes on the aircraft while I've had it here in preparation for moving further northwest. And ultimately it looks like the destination is going to be Boise area, and potentially will be hangaring the aircraft at Twin Falls initially. That's what it's looking like. But I got a bunch of stuff I still need to do before I can depart out of here on that trip. So one of the things I did yesterday, just completed with the help of some of the neighbours here, completed balancing the prop, which never got done when I was down in Valdosta. And if you notice there, I've also created another little inlet opening on the cowling, which can blow some cold air on the bottom of the engine just to help cool that, because that was kind of like fairly well insulated around the bottom of the engine. So I figured that was an easy one to do, just to help with the cooling. And I've done a couple other different little things while I've been here as well. I had to replace the parachute cover again. I lost that out on the way here. So I've done that, and then now I'm just going to do a little test flight and see how the propeller is now with the balancing, and see if this intake does any or makes any improvement on the cooling, and also see if the new parachute cover will stay on. I actually ended up making it out of a piece of sort of plastic and bonded it in place this time with some RTV.
Test 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 1 2.
And it's been about a year since I was up at the mountain here, and it's just beautiful this time of the year. Everything's super green, and it just really so relaxing and peaceful to be up here, even though I'm still keeping busy. So yeah, you'll get to see what this flight looks like around the area here, and I'll give you a little bit more commentary on what's happening and what's going to be happening. So for the dynamic balancing on the prop, I actually used a prop balancer that was for a rotaway helicopter, but it worked fine. It has an accelerometer that you mount there on the back next to where the prop mount is. I've basically mounted it there next to the redrive. And then it also has a little light with a pickup on there, and you put a reflector on the prop so it can tell the RPMs. And it just gives you a reading there of inches per second, and of how much the whole back end there of the aircraft is moving around in terms of vibration. So when it started out, when I first ran it, the reading was 0.8, which was fairly high. And by adding some weight into some more washers and larger, or just longer bolts to the spinner there, we were able to basically pull it into zero. So it ended up in the end did 3 different readings. One was 0.03, one was 0.1, and one was 0.12, which are all within the margin of error of the device, which is 0.15. And they were all sort of on either side of the center of the prop, because it tells you what angle from center that those readings are coming. So it's pretty much balanced, and you could definitely feel the difference. And when I was balancing it, we're running it at running the engine about 3,000 RPM. The prop was about 2,000 RPM. So you could feel from one iteration to the next that it's smoothed out. And actually, while I'm flying it here, I can really feel the difference. It's just much smoother in the seat. Really, really comfortable and smooth. And the air park here is pretty interesting, and trees are really growing up on either side of the runway all the way down, so you're basically flying down this corridor between all the trees, and even when you lift off, you've still got trees on either side of you, as you're going to see. So it's a little bit disconcerting when you first take off to make sure that you maintain center line. Here I'm just doing a little quick run up just to bring the engine up to full temperature there for takeoff, and just make sure the oil was going through the governor. It doesn't take much.
Holy Mountain traffic, Thermal 2 Tango Delta, taking runway 23 for departure. It'll be straight out departure, Holy Mountain.
So the air park has a 523 runway, and I'm taking off on 23. It's 4,780 feet, I believe, and the last end bit there on the start of 5 is a 200-foot displace threshold, and there's a very prominent uphill and then level and then downhill on the other side. So when you're at this end, you just absolutely cannot see the other end whatsoever, and it's fairly steep sort of uphill. Obviously won't come up on the camera, you won't sort of notice it so much, but it's definitely going uphill, similar to what it was at Cherokee County, but I think this is actually probably more so. So if you look there, you're looking up the hill. Anyway, so it's just a matter of when you lift off here, maintaining center line so you don't end up in the trees down the end there. And we're off, and please excuse the staining on the lower side of the fuselage there. Some of that's from previous old things where some, diesel fuel leaked out and such. And I believe, I think it was just diesel fuel there. It's kind of stained the primer. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to do like a 20-minute, half-hour flight just to see how things were. Obviously, the next flight will probably be when I start heading northwest. So I just wanted to be comfortable and just make sure that everything that I've changed and worked on in the last couple of weeks didn't have any problems. So that's the primary reason for this flight. Yeah, I noticed this go around actually was climbing slower than I normally do, just almost under 90 knots. And normally I climb at about 100 knots. So I think it was the trees just making me want to pitch up a little bit steeper. And yeah, this camera, I forgot to check the lens or the zoom in settings. So that camera there on the left wing is a little bit too much zoomed in. It was on the close setting rather than the medium one. And then the one on the right wing, I set that one, or I had that one set on the widest angle, so which is not ideal either. So anyway, I apologise for all that. But yeah, as I say, it's been a while. I had to charge up all my cameras and hadn't even had them out for a while. It's been just nice not having to worry about that aspect of this whole thing. So everything performed really well on this flight. The cooling was good. I didn't actually, climbed up to 4,000 feet, and I didn't even get the oil temperature over 242. I think just for a second it went to 242 when I pushed it a little more. And now that the prop is balanced, I noticed that I can run at a higher power setting and with still cooler temperatures, because I think the prop, being smoother now, it's more efficient. And also too, probably that new inlet there that I have underneath the fuselage. And you'll see when the camera goes over here to the left-hand wing again, have a look, and you'll see there's another inlet scoop there ahead of the other one that I had. There, you can see it right there. So that's basically blowing cold air right onto the sump and the engine block, and then it goes up, past the exhaust manifolds and then out the side vents there. So it should help to keep the engine cooler. It's not obviously as cool as doing, you know, a full-blown oil cooler that's running all the oil through it, but it was a fairly easy job to create another one of those scoops and just basically put it in there. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of things that we're going to be planning or doing for changes for, you know, the production plan, and a lot of things that I can't even talk about yet that are, you know, pretty going to be, you know, make a big difference in terms of performance. So, you know, the goal right now is just to get the aircraft up to the Boise, Idaho area, and I'm going to be taking it up around, you know, from here across Kansas, and then across Nebraska and Wyoming, and then into Montana, and then staging it right before some of the mountain passes there, and probably having some of the
traffic signal 2 Tango Delta is just maneuvering to the south of the field, currently 3,000 feet from Holly Mountain.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have one of the guys there from the new company come and meet me out there and take some of the stuff that I'm going to be carrying out there. Take it off the aircraft so I don't have so much weight, and because I really don't know, you know, how well the aircraft's going to perform going over the mountains there. I mean, I've got plenty of power. It's all about temperatures. So I need to make sure that, you know, it'd be nice if I'm as light as I can be when I'm going across there, so I don't have to, you know, push it too hard. But if the temperatures cool down, I mean, right now they're having a heat wave up there, but once that cools down, and, you know, I'm flying up there at higher altitudes and I'm getting temperatures sort of in the 50 degrees range, shouldn't have any problems at all. It's when the temperatures are in the high 60s and 70s is that I'm limited by how much power I can run. And even today, you know, when I'm pulling the power back and just sort of cruising along, I've only got it at 65% throttle. So there's plenty of power available, and it's just a matter of, you know, if I have cool temperatures, I can use it.
445 Bravo, inbound from the southwest, about 10 miles out, now 4,500 feet, landing, Buffalo.
So back when I was in Valdosta, the remaining hours that I had to fly off once I'd swapped the engine out, the 30 hours, pretty much went fairly smoothly. I didn't really have any major issues or anything like that. Just was, you know, doing 2-hour flights sort of, you know, every day that I could, and then, you know, completed the 40 hours. And then I did a flight, which was 2 weeks ago now, out to, stopped at Alabama at Mike 95 Airport, which I'd been at before, and the manager there remembered me from way back in 2004. And so they hosted me there, and I picked up a little bit of jet fuel there and added in a little bit of Marvel Mystery Oil to go with that, so I had 16 gallons on board there. And then flew up to Holly Mountain the next morning. And during those 2 flights, I was pretty much burning 9 gallons an hour. And
Outbound traffic signal 2 Tango Delta is crossing over the field, southeast to northwest 3,500 Holly Mountain.
yeah, I was burning about 9 gallons an hour on average. And, you know, again, because the temperatures are warm, basically, I think the coldest temperature I saw even at altitude on those 2 flights was 68 degrees. So it was, you know, a bit challenging for me there, just trying to keep the engine cool. So I had the power back at mostly about 57% throttle. So cruising about 3,500 feet most of the way, and with flight following. Yeah, so it's not burning much fuel at all. So that's kind of working out the way it should. But you know, if I have the cooler temperatures, then I can go with a higher power. And I don't know if you noticed there, but flew over the top of the air park again. So yeah, it's just this area. You don't really. No one talks about Arkansas very much. It's kind of one of those places that sort of gets left off of the map and conversations and stuff, but it's actually really beautiful here. This, where Holly Mountain is, it's on the southern end.
Looking good, Peter.
Thank you very much.
It's on the southern end of the Ozark Mountains, so you're just coming into the mountains there, And a little bit south of us starts to get sort of flat again. A little bit north, it's a little bit mountainous. I think the highest mountains are only 3,000 something feet, maybe 4,000. But yeah, it's super pretty area.
Type of 45 Bravo, now 5 miles southwest and 3,000 feet. Going to be coming on 45 to left downwind for runway 25 Russell.
And just to the left there, behind the G3X overlay, there is the town of Clinton. And that has its own little airport as well there. You can see in this image just underneath the nose of the aircraft there, that's the airport there. They got a 4,000 foot runway.
1 Fox Charlie left downwind for 13 Ava.
And obviously hearing on the radio, there's plenty of other airports in the area that were quite busy this morning. I took off at about 7:30 a.m. and just flew for half an hour, but everybody else I guess had the same idea. But I was the only one flying out of Holly Mountain at the time. And one of the other small projects I did, still while I was back in Valdosta, was I created some aluminum extensions for those fences that hang down underneath the wingtips. You can't really see it in any of the camera angles because the cameras are inboard of where those are. But just extending them more than what they were initially after I damaged that one wing when I had the dead stick landing.
1 Fox Charlie turning left base 13 Ava.
Actually really helped with the stability, and now it's, as you can see, it's just rock solid there. It doesn't have any sort of wandering at all in the roll axis, and even when you get slow, it's nice and stable. So I think that did the trick. Potentially what we had on there originally, just with the carbon fiber ones that we made, was just not enough.
1 Fox Charlie turning final 13 Ava.
And so maybe that me scraping that one and having to shorten it and then having to lengthen it again was probably a bit of a silver lining there, because I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I would have just left it. But once it was shortened, I noticed after a couple of flights there, once I had the new engine up and running, that there was a little bit of worse stability in the roll axis. So of course, I attribute it to those being shorter. And so just lengthening, so they're basically the same length in the front, but at the back they end up being about 2.5 to maybe even 3 inches taller. So they sort of keep that same height all the way back to the trailing edge of the wing.
Traffic, type of 45 Bravo, entering left downwind for 25 Russell.
Yeah, that really made a difference. And then the other thing I've done, if you look just ahead of the left side door on the fuselage, next time the camera angle comes around to that side, you'll see I've put like one of those little round window vents on there because I've got to run the heater loop in order to have that front cooling loop active, and it was just getting sort of overly hot in the cabin all the time, and I was just trying to think, well, how can I get some fresh air in here without really butchering everything. Obviously I'm not pressurizing the cabin on this particular aircraft because of the crack in the window and the hole that I cut in the keel. So I was like, well, what's the easiest way to do it? So I basically cut that, which is basically a 3 1/4 inch hole, I think, and put that vent in there so that the cool air blows right up at me. See, I'm actually putting my hands up there to feel it. Just because, sitting there and flying, I end up with a sweaty palm there sometimes when it's warm. But yeah, that little air vent brings in tons of fresh air, and as you can see how stable the aircraft is there, just completely take my hands off the controls and it's just rock solid.
1 Fox Charlie left downwind 13 Ava.
Not using the autopilot at all. In fact, I haven't really needed to do it because the aircraft will just stay there.
Yes, sir, if you know it, 800 Alpha Golf is 5 miles to the northwest. We'll be internet downwind for runway 0130.
Russell traffic, type of 45 Bravo, left base for 25 Russell.
Airport, automated advisory, wind, calm, temperature 6, 4, current height, opening 5, liner, current height, altimeter 3015, remarks, no possible in vicinity.
Yeah, if you look on just forward of the front of that door there, you can see that inlet or vent. So it's working great and keeps the cabin at a reasonable enough temperature for me so I don't get overly hot in there.
Especially traffic number 8 turning out for Golf is left downwind on runway 01.
Yeah, sorry about all the audio on this, but anyway, so the other thing I've done as well the other day is I did some test runs down the runway, just high-speed runs here, lightly loaded, and then also just added a whole bunch of weights similar to what I'd be going to be loaded at when I leave out of here, just to see how comfortable I'll be and how much longer my roll up to rotation speed is. And it looks like I'm not going to have too many problems that particular roll today. I was rotating there at midfield and off there, still with about 1,300 feet or more remaining. Actually, probably 1,500 feet if you include the displace threshold. Yeah, comfortable enough there. But when I get loaded up, probably my takeoff roll is going to be about another 300 feet longer, I think, before I'm rotating. But I think it's still acceptable there. So my flights up north there are going to be limited to probably 2 hours again. That gives me a chance to check over everything and not be flying for too long, and then I don't have to carry quite so much fuel with all the other stuff I'm going to be carrying in the aircraft. So because I've got to take the seats and I want to take the interior panels, and I'm going to be taking the model with me as well, all that stuff. The new company wants to have all that stuff there. So, and I'll potentially have some items that I may ship that are just smaller but heavier. So I've got to figure all that out over the next week.
St. Travis, 7A, 4 Mike is turning left southwest, runway 35, close pattern. And Travis, 1 South Charlie, left downwind, 13, Ava. Search traffic number 8 on Alpha Golf, left base, runway 01, 30. Ava traffic 75,
And with respect to future videos, I don't think, I'm not going to be making any on this trip just because it's too involved, having to deal with that, and as well with all the other things of flight planning and flying up through the mountains and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to be making any videos about that. Potentially I might make a video when I've arrived there, but in terms of the future stuff, I don't think I'll be making any videos. And I think the new company, that's their plan, to sort of make everything public until they're ready to announce how the production plan is going to work exactly. So unfortunately this may be the last video for some time, or maybe until production ends up getting underway. And for those people, and most of you already know, who've put in the larger deposits and been the ones who really made this project possible up till this point, most of you already know, or a lot of you already know, that the plan is here with the new company that they're going to be returning your deposit, but you'll still be maintaining your discounted aircraft price and your position in line. So if you didn't already know that, you do know now. So once I've got the aircraft up there, I'm hoping to get that deal all closed and organised and moved along as quickly as possible, so we can get on with the process of what we're planning going ahead.
With St. Travis, 7A, 4 Mike is turning place for runway 35, full stop.
And here I'm just coming around to do another pass over the top of the air park, because there was quite a few people and residents there who were watching me flying around.
Hollyman traffic, Emerald 2 Tango Delta is going to overfly the field from northeast to southwest, Hollyman.
Good thing, traffic 817.9 is final for runway 35 south.
1 Foxtrot, return left south, then for 13, Haven. Roger that. 1 Foxtrot. And 1 Foxtrot, left downwind for 13.
Taxi traffic, RV29 Sierra Mike, 10 miles west, inbound Percy.
And there you can see the air park just below. So looking super nice. It's like a little oasis in the middle of all the trees. There's actually a creek that runs around the whole air park there, almost on both sides and around the one end. It's 500 feet below the elevation of the air park there, and you can actually walk down to that creek. There's a couple of different trails that go down. It's really pretty down there as well. So the dynamic prop balancing was a complete success, definitely smoother in flight there. I'm happy about that. And the new parachute cover stayed on, which was good. And I believe that scoop, that new scoop, has improved the cooling somewhat. I'll have to fly it some more to be able to know for sure.
1 Foxtrot, returning final, 13.
So all the projects that I really wanted to do while I was here have now been completed. So I'll be working on going through all the things that I need to pack up to take with me, and figuring out what I'm going to take on board and what I need to ship ahead of me, because I'm not coming back, with a vehicle to pick up things. So whatever I can fit in the aircraft will ship out is all I can take. And so there's Clinton Township and the airport there, just going under the aircraft. Again, I've actually got quite a bit of time flying in and out of that airport when I was doing flight instruction, when I was living up on the air park through up until 2014.
Highway Lansing Air Park, automated advisory, wind, calm, temperature 6, 4, Fahrenheit, 15, 5, 9 Fahrenheit, altimeter 3015, relax, all possible in vicinity.
Midfield to the northwest, southwest traffic.
Taxi traffic, RV29 Sierra Mike, 5 miles west, inbound Percy.
Yeah, hopefully when I'm ready to head north here, I get a weather window of mornings that are similar to what this one was, because it was just glorious out. It was smooth and cool, and what else can you ask for, really? Clear skies. It was great.
Buffalo traffic, Skyhawk 7715 Golf. We are 11 miles to the northwest, inbound for runway 25, Buffalo traffic.
Naval traffic, 1 Foxtrot, returning left downwind for 13, Naval. And Hollyman traffic, Emerald 2 Tango Delta is about 4 miles to the southwest, inbound, the landing 23, joining our right downwind for 23, Hollyman.
Yeah, as you can see there, the wind was out of the east at altitude, but down on the ground it was just pretty much calm, so I just elected to come back around and land on 2-3 again. It's more fun landing that way, I think. It's a bit more challenging. 5's not bad, it's not quite as much of an uphill on 5. So I just chose to land on 2-3 again, and also too because I knew everybody was going to be standing down that end watching me arrive, and if I had landed on 5 they wouldn't have seen anything. So there was a few of the neighbours that were out there early morning to watch me fly, because this is the first time that they actually seen the airplane in the air.
1 Fox Charlie, left base, 18, 13.
And when you're landing on 23 at the airpark there, it's right traffic because there's a C-130 route on the south side of the airport, or the airpark. So they routed the traffic on the left side. And the only other thing is to watch out for is just the deceptive approach there with the uphill of the runway.
1 Charlie, turning final 138.
And airport elevation is about 1,260 depending on where you're standing, a little bit lower on the ends. So pattern elevation is like 2,260. So I was just descending to that to get set up from the approach.
Turkey traffic, RV29 Mike, entering left downwind for runway 1, Turkey. Raptor traffic, Survival 7, Singapore 47 by 12 to the south of the field, inbound, landing direct to the ramp for refuel. Raptor traffic.
Raptor traffic, Skyhawk 7715 Golf, we are 6 miles to the northwest and down for a left base for runway 25. Raptor traffic.
Highway Mountain Airpark, automated advisory, wind, calm.
And the advisory there has 2 modes. If you do 4 clicks, it just gives you the wind. If you do 6 clicks, it gives you all the rest of the information, temperature and DA and stuff like that. So I was just doing one last check just to see if the wind hadn't picked up yet, just in case I decided I was going to change and land on 5. But it was still calm, so I just kept with the plane and landed on 23, and there you can just see the airpark right there underneath the nose coming into view.
Charlie, left downwind 13, Ava. And Holly Mountain traffic 2 Tango Delta is just about to join right downwind to 23 Holly Mountain.
Turkey traffic, RV29 Mike, left base, runway 1, Turkey.
Raptor traffic 7715 Golf, inbound for runway 7. Raptor traffic.
Raptor traffic, Survival 7 is now on 9 miles to the south, 2,000 feet inbound, will be landing direct to the ramp. We'll follow number 2 behind you. Raptor traffic.
It's amazing how much radio chatter there is in this area compared to how quiet it was down at Valdosta, even with a larger airport now.
Holly Mountain traffic 2 Tango Delta is right downwind to 23 Holly Mountain.
Turkey traffic, RV29 Sierra Mike, final.
Charlie, final.
Raptor traffic 15 Golf, enter the left base for runway 7. Raptor traffic.
Raptor traffic, 5795 miles south, 1,900 inbound, landing direct to the ramp, let's go.
Now I can tell I was a little bit out of practice at this airpark, or this airport. I was a little bit close in for approaching with my airspeed at 108, you can see there. But I managed to bring it around. I overshot the approach a tiny little bit, but not too much. So, no big deal. What's one thing nice about this aircraft? I'm not worried about the stall spin accident. Just fly it around and it's...
Holly Mountain traffic 2 Tango Delta, standing right base at 3, Holly Mountain.
It's only going to do what it can do, and if you pull too hard, it'll just stall the foreplane, and then the nose will drop and just keep flying. So, yeah.
So traffic Tower 7 is now 3 miles to the south of the line direct to the ramp for Russellville.
Holly Mountain traffic to Tango Delta is short final to 3 Holly Mountain.
And when the wind kicks up from the north west like it does, it can be pretty challenging landing here because you have rotors coming across the treetops, and then where you've got the little taxiways coming into the runway, you've got open areas that you really can kick up through those areas, so you've really got to be on your game landing here. But it's fun. And if you look over here on the left hand side, you'll see some of the neighbours there watching you come in, standing on the taxiway there. So yeah, that was a nice landing. Actually pretty happy with that one. And I didn't have to try too hard to slow down, so now I'm just about to go on the downhill here towards where the fire station is at the end. So I just let it roll out, a little bit on the brakes, not too much. And there's 1,000 feet remaining there still, so good fun. Really enjoyed that.
Holly Mountain traffic to Tango Delta, taxi back, runway 23, Holly Mountain.
And as I said, once I got back, there was nothing to do on the aircraft. Everything was looking good. I don't have any other squawks or anything like that, so just got to start planning my trip and loading up and getting all sorted out and waiting for a weather window. So hopefully you've enjoyed this longer video, which, as I said, could potentially be the last one for quite some time, if not like for a long time. We'll just have to wait and see. And if you're still watching after all that amount of time, 37 minutes so far, I've got a little extra bonus at the end for you, which is the 3 main cameras there, the complete takeoff and complete landing for each, so you can get a real feel of what it's like flying in and out of here with all the trees and stuff. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, as I said, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you still want to follow my flights when I start heading north, you can use Flight Radar 24 or Flight Aware. Just put in my tail number there, 352 Tango Delta, and you can set up alerts on both of those, I believe. And it'll alert you when I hit radar coverage or ADS-B reports that I'm in the air. And you can follow along and see where I am and see where I'm going. As I said, flights going north will probably be just 2-hour legs, and I'll be stopping overnight in each of the places there, and that'll give me a chance to pull the cowling off at each stop there and just double check everything and see how belts are and everything else is sort of holding up, and potentially if I have any problems, I can address them before they become a major problem, and then move on to the next location until I make it up to Montana, and before I start going across the mountains. So it's going to be a while, probably a couple of weeks I'd say, before I'm ready to cross the mountains there with everything I still need to do. So anyway, that's that. And can't really say I'll see you on the next video, but I hope you've enjoyed this series up until now. Keep following along when we put out news releases and stuff. There's some super exciting stuff that we're working on. As I said, I can't really say anything about it just yet.
Are you out of bed?
So anyway, keep sort of following along like that. And anybody who still has a deposit with escrow.com, you should really call them and cancel your deposit and get your money back. But I'm keeping everybody's position in line, so I'm not wiping anybody from the database. You'll all still have the same position that you had. And of course, there's lots of people who have completely dropped out prior to this, and everybody in between sort of slides up the list. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and just stay tuned here for those takeoffs and landings, and we'll see you at some point in the future. Cheers.